Right now, beneath the streets of Naples, something is happening that has never been recorded at this scale in modern European history. Over the past 3 years, the ground under 500,000 people has been releasing carbon dioxide at a rate that matches active volcanoes on the edge of eruption. Not gradually, not slowly, but accelerating month after month with no sign of stopping. In 2021, scientists measuring gas emissions from the Campi Flegrei caldera recorded approximately 100 tons of carbon dioxide escaping from underground vents each day. By early 2024, that number had exploded to over 1,500 tons daily. That is a 15-fold increase in less than 3 years. To put this in perspective, this level of gas release is what volcanologists expect to see only at volcanoes with open conduits, direct pathways between surface vents and active magma chambers deep underground. But here is what makes this truly alarming. So, open conduit conditions do not appear randomly. They develop when underground pressure builds to the point where gases can no longer be contained by the rock layers above. When scientists see these emission levels, they know the volcano is actively degassing, not from old trapped gases, but from fresh magma interacting with the Earth's crust right now. Dr. Giovanni Chiodini from Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology has been monitoring Campi Flegrei for decades. His team published findings showing that the Solfatara Preparedness hydrothermal system, the primary gas release zone in the caldera, reached 1,557 tons of carbon dioxide per day in 2024. In his analysis, he stated this value is comparable to emissions from active volcanoes with open conduits. This is not speculation. What concerns researchers most is not just the total volume of gas, but the chemical signature of what is being released. When Dr. Stefano Calero analyzed the composition of these emissions, he found trace compounds that only appear when high-temperature magma directly interacts with crustal rock. The rising gas flux, he explained, suggests an intensification of hydrothermal processes characterizing the escalating unrest at Campi Flegrei. This means the underground system is not cooling down or stabilizing. It is heating up and pressurizing. The carbon dioxide concentrations being measured now match those found at volcanic systems in the final stages before eruption. But unlike remote volcanoes, where evacuations can happen days or weeks in advance, Campi Flegrei sits directly beneath one of Europe's most densely populated metropolitan areas. The last time gas emissions reached dangerous levels here was during the Breda seismic crisis between 1982 and 1984. During that period, residents near the Solfatara crater began reporting unusual odors and difficulty breathing. Within months, atmospheric monitoring revealed carbon dioxide concentrations that exceeded air quality safety standards. By September of 1983, some areas became temporarily uninhabitable, not because of earthquakes or lava, but because the air itself had become chemically unsafe to breathe. Families were forced to relocate. Emergency responders used protocols designed for industrial chemical accidents. The crisis proved that volcanic gas could threaten lives long before any eruption occurred. But today's emission levels are nearly 10 times higher than the worst measurements from that crisis. And unlike 40 years ago, the population living above this caldera has grown significantly. So what exactly is happening beneath the surface that could explain this dramatic surge in gas emissions? The answer lies in a process that most people never see, but one that scientists can now track with extraordinary precision. When magma rises from deep within the Earth's mantle, it does not simply sit quietly in underground chambers. It interacts violently with the surrounding rock. At Campi Flegrei, This magma is encountering limestone and carbonate-rich crustal materials. When these rocks are heated to extreme temperatures, they undergo chemical decomposition, releasing massive quantities of carbon dioxide that must find a way to escape. Think of it like a pressure cooker with no release valve. As more magma accumulates and heats the crust, more gas is produced. That gas builds pressure until it finds weaknesses in the overlying rock, creating pathways to the surface. Recent seismic tomography studies have revealed something deeply concerning. Between 3 and 5 kilometers beneath Pozzuoli, researchers have identified an extensive fracture network developing in the caprock, the layer of rock that acts as a lid over the magma system. This is not a single crack. It is a growing web of interconnected fractures, allowing gases to migrate upward more efficiently than ever before. Dr. Caldero's team has documented that this fracturing process is accelerating. The more gas that escapes, the more pressure is relieved in some areas. But this relief is not uniform. It creates stress imbalances that cause new fractures to form. What makes this particularly dangerous is the unpredictability. Unlike a controlled industrial process where engineers can monitor pressure gauges and adjust release valves, geological systems operate on their own timeline. Suddenly, gas emissions can spike suddenly based on underground pressure cycles that occur without warning. Residents could experience normal air quality one day and be exposed to hazardous concentrations the next. Historical records show just how quickly conditions can change. In June of 1983, the first complaints from Pozzuoli residents were dismissed as minor irritations. Within 3 months, entire neighborhoods near volcanic vents had become unsafe for continuous habitation. Emergency teams had to treat the situation like an industrial chemical leak, even though the source was entirely natural and impossible to shut down. Even more concerning, if you were living in Pozzuoli right now, would you trust that authorities would give you enough advance warning before air quality became dangerous? Or would you be making your own evacuation plans just in case? The reality on the ground tells a story that statistics alone cannot capture. Walk through the streets of Pozzuoli today, and you will see something that has become disturbingly routine. Fresh cracks appearing in building walls. Masonry splitting along stress lines that were not there 6 months ago. Use Ashdose. Residents photographing structural damage, not for insurance claims, but to document what they fear might be early warning signs of something far worse. Port operations have been disrupted multiple times, as ground deformation causes water levels to shift unpredictably. Boats that were docked safely 1 week run aground, the next as the sea floor rises beneath them. But normalization of risk is perhaps the most dangerous response of all. When minor earthquakes happen daily, when structural cracks become routine maintenance issues, when gas emissions steadily climb without triggering immediate evacuations, communities begin to tune out warnings. The Italian government has designated Campi Flegrei as a yellow alert zone, the second highest level on their volcanic warning system. Yellow alert means the volcano shows significant unrest, but is not in a pre-eruptive state. So here is what I want to know from you. Lived in Naples or Pozzuoli right now? At what point would you personally decide to leave? Would you wait for authorities to raise the alert to orange or red? What separates informed vigilance from unnecessary panic is understanding what specific indicators to watch. Right now, scientists are monitoring several critical thresholds that could signal an imminent shift from chronic unrest to acute crisis. First, ground deformation rates. The Right Monitoring Station in Pozzuoli has recorded uplift averaging 2.5 centimeters per month throughout 2024. If this rate suddenly accelerates to 5 centimeters per month or higher second, seismic swarm patterns. Campi Flegrei has experienced over 1,000 earthquakes in recent months. But what matters more than total numbers is clustering and depth. If earthquakes begin concentrating in shallow zones less than 2 kilometers deep, or if swarms intensify near the historical eruption site of Monte Nuovo, these are signs that magma or pressurized fluids are forcing their way closer to the surface. Third, gas composition changes. Current emissions are dominated by carbon dioxide. But if monitoring stations detect significant increases in sulfur dioxide or hydrogen sulfide, this would suggest fresh magma is degassing directly, rather than just heating surrounding rock. The Italian Civil Protection Department has developed evacuation plans for various scenarios, but the effectiveness of these plans depends entirely on how much warning time is available. Monte Nuovo, the last eruption at Campi Flegrei in 1538, gave residents only days of intense precursory activity before exploding. Modern monitoring provides more data than ever before, but translating that data into timely public action remains the greatest challenge. For residents and anyone with family in the region, preparedness is not about living in fear. It is about having a plan that can be activated quickly if conditions change. Keep important documents accessible. Know multiple evacuation routes out of the caldera zone. Have communication plans that do not rely solely on local cell networks, which could be overwhelmed during a crisis. Monitor official INGV bulletins directly rather than relying only on second-hand news reports. The geological processes unfolding beneath Campi Flegrei are not going to stop because they are inconvenient or frightening. The magma will continue interacting with crustal rock. The gases will continue building pressure and seeking pathways to escape. The only variable that remains within human control is how seriously we take the warnings that nature is already giving us. If this information changed how you think about volcanic risk, hit that subscribe button. Because what is happening at Campi Flegrei is not just a local Italian issue.